The clock on the wall showed 10:47 p.m. when Minseo Park pushed her cleaning cart into Lecture Hall B at Riverside University. The building was quiet now. All the students had gone home hours ago. All the professors had left their offices. It was just Minseo in the empty hallways, the way she liked it. She had been working as a night janitor at the university for almost 2 years now. Every evening she arrived at 9 p.m. and cleaned until 5 a.m. She mopped floors, emptied trash cans, wiped down desks, and cleaned whiteboards. It was hard work, but it paid her bills. More importantly, it helped her send money back home to Seoul, where her father was still recovering from his illness. Minseo pulled out her cleaning supplies and started with the student desks. She wiped each one carefully, removing pencil marks and coffee stains. As she worked, her eyes kept drifting to the large whiteboard at the front of the room. The board was covered in mathematical equations. Complex calculus problems filled every inch of the white surface. Minseo recognized the handwriting. It belonged to Professor David Richardson, the head of the mathematics department. He often left his work on the boards overnight, continuing his research the next morning. Minseo tried to focus on her cleaning, but the equations pulled at her attention like a magnet. She had always been this way with math. Ever since she was a little girl in Seoul, numbers and formulas made sense to her in a way that nothing else did. She remembered her high school math teacher, Mr. Kim, who had first noticed her gift. He had entered her in a national mathematics competition when she was just 15. She had won first place, beating students from all over South Korea. After that, the scholarships came. Seoul National University, one of the best schools in the country, offered her a full scholarship to study mathematics. Those had been the happiest 3 years of her life. She spent her days solving equations, attending lectures, working on proofs. Her professors said she had a special mind for mathematics. They said she could become a great researcher someday. But then everything changed. Her father had a stroke. The medical bills piled up quickly. Her mother worked at a small restaurant, but it was not enough. Minseo had 2 younger brothers still in school. Someone had to help the family. She had dropped out of university in her 4th year, just 1 year away from graduation. She took a job at a factory to earn money quickly. Then, when her aunt, who lived in America, offered to help her find work, Minseo made the difficult choice to leave Korea. She thought she could earn more money in America and send it home. That was 2 years ago. Since then, she had worked as a waitress, a store clerk, and now a janitor. Every month, she sent most of her earnings back to her family. Her father was getting better slowly. Her brothers were doing well in school. But Minseo's dreams of becoming a mathematician felt like they belonged to a different person, in a different life. She finished wiping the last desk and picked up her cleaning spray. It was time to clean the whiteboard. But as she approached it, she stopped. Her eyes scanned the equations more carefully now. Professor Richardson was working on an optimization problem. Minseo could see that immediately. It was the kind of problem that asked you to find the maximum or minimum value of something while dealing with certain limits or rules. These problems could be very difficult, but as she studied his work, she noticed something. There was an error in his approach. Not a small mistake in calculation, but a wrong turn in his method. He was trying to solve the problem using a standard technique from textbooks, but this particular problem needed a different approach. Minseo felt her heart beat faster. She recognized this type of problem. She had worked on similar ones at Seoul National University. There was a theorem, a less common one that most people did not learn in basic calculus classes. That would make this problem much easier to solve. She stood there for a long moment holding her cleaning spray and cloth. She should just clean the board and move on. It was not her place to correct a professor. She was just the janitor. Who would listen to her anyway? But the mathematician inside her, the part that had never really died despite everything, could not let it go. Her hand moved almost on its own. She set down her cleaning supplies and picked up a dry erase marker from the tray. In the bottom right corner of the board, in small handwriting, she wrote a note in Korean. She wrote about the alternative theorem, the one that could help solve this problem more easily. She kept it brief, just a few lines. Maybe Professor Richardson would not even notice it. Maybe it would not matter. But at least she had tried to help. Minseo put the marker back and picked up her eraser. She carefully cleaned around her small note, erasing everything else on the board until it shined clean. Then she finished cleaning the rest of the lecture hall and moved on to the next room. The next morning, Professor David Richardson arrived at the mathematics building at 7:30 a.m. He was always an early riser. He liked to get to his office before the other professors arrived, before the students filled the hallways with their noise and questions. He walked into Lecture Hall B carrying his coffee and leather briefcase. He was expecting to see his equations still on the board, ready for him to continue his work. But the board was completely clean. Richardson frowned. He had specifically told the cleaning staff not to erase this board. He had left a note on his desk. But then he noticed something in the corner. There was writing there, small and neat. He walked closer and saw that it was in a foreign language. Korean, maybe? He could not read it, but there were mathematical symbols mixed in with the foreign characters. His frown deepened. Who had written on his board? Richardson walked quickly to the main office. Mrs. Patterson, the department secretary, was just arriving with her own cup of coffee. Mrs. Patterson, Richardson said, his voice sharp. Who cleaned Lecture Hall B last night? Mrs. Patterson set down her coffee and checked her computer. That would be Minseo Park. She handles that wing of the building. The janitor wrote on my whiteboard, Richardson said, his voice full of disbelief. On my research work. Mrs. Patterson looked concerned. I'm sorry, Professor. Did she damage something? She left a note. In Korean or something. Right on my board. At that moment, Dr. Sarah Chen walked into the office. She was a young assistant professor, only 35, and one of the few women in the mathematics department. She had overheard Richardson's complaint. May I see it? Dr. Chen asked. The three of them walked back to the lecture hall. Dr. Chen studied the note in the corner of the board. Her eyes widened slightly. She could not read Korean, but she understood the mathematical notation perfectly. This was not random scribbling. This was a sophisticated mathematical suggestion. This is actually quite interesting, Dr. Chen said slowly. Professor Richardson laughed. It was not a kind laugh. Interesting. Sarah, the cleaning lady, touched my research work. She has no idea what any of this means. She probably just copied something she saw in another classroom. But these symbols, Dr. Chen said, pulling out her phone.
May I take a picture before you erase it?
Richardson waved his hand dismissively. If you want. But I'm erasing this nonsense right now, and I'm going to send an email to all the cleaning staff. They need to understand that they should not touch faculty work. This is unacceptable. He picked up the eraser and wiped away Minseo's note with firm, angry strokes. Dr. Chen quickly took several photos from different angles. Something about that note bothered her. It looked too precise, too knowing to be random. That evening, when Minseo returned to work, she went straight to Lecture Hall B. Her stomach was tight with worry. She had been thinking all day about her note. Had she made a mistake? Would she get in trouble? When she entered the room, she saw the board was blank except for a new set of equations. Professor Richardson had started working on a different part of his problem. Her note was gone. Minseo felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. Of course he had erased it. What had she been thinking? She was a janitor now, not a mathematics student. She had no right to leave notes on a professor's work. She cleaned the room quickly that night, avoiding looking at the board. She told herself she would not make that mistake again. But as she pushed her cart down the hallway toward the next classroom, she could not help thinking about that optimization problem. And despite everything, despite her embarrassment, she still knew her suggestion had been correct. 2 days passed. Minseo kept her promise to herself. She cleaned Lecture Hall B without looking at the whiteboard. She wiped desks, mopped floors, and emptied trash cans. She did her job and nothing more. But on the third night, something changed. As she was wiping down the last row of desks, her eyes accidentally landed on the board. Professor Richardson had written out a new problem. It was different from the first one, but just as complex. Minseo tried to look away. She really did. But her mind had already started working on the problem. Even as she cleaned, even as she tried to think about other things, part of her brain was analyzing those equations. By the time she finished cleaning the room, she had spotted the issue. Professor Richardson was making the same type of mistake again. He was forcing a standard method onto a problem that needed creative thinking. Minseo stood by the door, her hand on her cleaning cart. She should leave. She should forget about it. She had already been embarrassed once. But what if her help could actually matter? What if Professor Richardson was stuck on important research because he could not see what she could see? Before she could change her mind, Min-seo walked back to the board. This time she wrote her note even smaller, in the very bottom corner. She wrote it in English this time, not Korean. Just a few words suggesting a different direction. Nothing more. Then she cleaned the board around her note and left quickly. The next morning, Professor Richardson saw the note. His face turned red with anger. Another note. And this time in English, which somehow made it feel even more insulting. The cleaning staff was mocking him now, he was sure of it. He sent a strong email to the entire mathematics department and the facilities manager. The subject line read, "Please do not touch faculty whiteboards." In the email, he wrote that someone had been leaving notes on his research work, and it needed to stop immediately. But despite his anger, Richardson did read the note before erasing it. And later that day, when he was working on the problem in his office, he found himself thinking about the suggestion. It was actually not a bad idea. Not that he would ever admit that. Over the next 2 weeks, a strange pattern developed. Every few days, Min-seo would find a new problem on the board in Lecture Hall B. And every few days, if she saw a way to help, she would leave a small note. She changed her approach each time. Sometimes she wrote in the bottom left corner. Sometimes in the top right. Sometimes she used tiny handwriting. Sometimes she drew small diagrams. She never wrote full solutions, just gentle hints, little pushes in the right direction. Professor Richardson's emails became more frequent and more frustrated. He was convinced that a graduate student was playing a prank on him. He questioned several students, but they all denied involvement. The mystery writer remained unknown. Dr. Sarah Chen had been watching the situation with growing interest. She had saved the photo of the first note, and she had been studying it. The mathematical approach suggested in that note was elegant and unusual. It showed deep understanding, not just textbook knowledge. When the second note appeared, Dr. Chen made sure to photograph it before Richardson erased it. Then the third note. Then the fourth. She began to see a pattern in the thinking. Whoever was leaving these notes had a gift for finding creative solutions to difficult problems. Dr. Chen decided she needed to find out who this person was. She started staying late at the university, working in her office past 10 p.m. Her office window looked out onto the hallway, and from there she could see into Lecture Hall B through the open door. On the 5th night of her stakeout, Dr. Chen finally saw something. She had been reading papers in her office when she heard the sound of a cleaning cart in the hallway. She moved to her door and opened it just a crack. Through the gap, she could see into the lecture hall across the corridor. A woman in a blue janitor's uniform was cleaning the desks. It was Min-seo, though Dr. Chen did not know her name yet. Dr. Chen watched as Min-seo worked efficiently, wiping each desk clean. Then Min-seo approached the whiteboard. She stood there for a long moment, just looking at the equations. Even from a distance, Dr. Chen could see the concentration on her face. Then Min-seo picked up a marker and wrote something small in the corner of the board. Dr. Chen's heart beat faster. This was the mystery writer. The cleaning woman! But that did not make sense. How could a janitor understand advanced calculus? Dr. Chen felt confused and curious at the same time. Min-seo finished writing and cleaned the rest of the board. Then she pushed her cart out of the room and continued down the hallway to the next classroom. Dr. Chen waited a few minutes, then quietly followed. She watched as Min-seo entered the next room, another lecture hall, and began the same routine. Clean the desks, empty the trash, wipe the board. There was another board in this room with equations on it. These belonged to Dr. Martinez, who taught differential equations. Min-seo studied this board too. But this time she did not write anything. She just cleaned it and moved on, so she was selective, Dr. Chen thought. She only left notes when she actually had something useful to say. Dr. Chen returned to her office and sat down at her desk. She needed to talk to this woman, but she had to be careful. If the janitor was afraid of getting in trouble, she might stop leaving notes. And Dr. Chen wanted to understand who this person really was. The next evening, Dr. Chen stayed late again. When she heard the cleaning cart in the hallway, she waited until Min-seo had finished in Lecture Hall B. Then, as Min-seo pushed her cart toward the next room, Dr. Chen stepped out of her office. "Excuse me," Dr. Chen said gently. Min-seo jumped, startled. She had thought she was alone in the building. When she turned and saw it was a professor, her face filled with fear. "I'm sorry," Minseo said quickly, her accent thick. Did I make too much noise? I could be more quiet. No, Dr. Chen said, raising her hands in a peaceful gesture. You are not in trouble. I just wanted to talk to you for a moment. Do you have time? Minseo looked confused, but she nodded slowly. Yes, I have time. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I am a professor here in the mathematics department. Dr. Chen smiled warmly. What is your name? Minseo Park, she answered quietly. Minseo, that is a beautiful name. Dr. Chen paused, choosing her words carefully. Minseo, I have been noticing the notes you leave on Professor Richardson's whiteboard. All the color drained from Minseo's face. I am very sorry, she said quickly. I will stop. Please do not fire me. I need this job. I did not mean to cause problems. I just thought maybe I could help, but I was wrong. I will not do it again. The words came out in a rush, and Minseo looked like she might cry. Please do not worry, Dr. Chen said quickly. You are not in trouble. I promise. Actually, I think your notes are very interesting. Very smart. Minseo looked at Dr. Chen with surprise and confusion. Smart? Yes, the suggestions you make, they show real understanding of mathematics. Deep understanding. Dr. Chen took a step closer. Minseo, can I ask you something? Where did you learn calculus? Minseo hesitated. She had never told anyone at the university about her past. It felt like a different life, and she had learned to keep her two lives separate. Janitor Minseo and mathematics student Minseo did not belong in the same world. But Dr. Chen's face was kind, and her voice was gentle. Something in Minseo wanted to tell the truth to someone finally. In Korea, Minseo said quietly, I went to Seoul National University. I studied mathematics for 3 years. Dr. Chen's eyes widened. Seoul National University? That is one of the best schools in Asia. Yes, Minseo said, looking down at her cleaning cart. I had a scholarship. I was good at math in high school. I won competitions. So the university gave me money to study. 3 years, Dr. Chen said. So you were close to graduating? 1 more year left, Minseo said. But my father got sick, very sick. The hospital bills were too much money. My family needed help, so I left school and came to America to work. That must have been very difficult, Dr. Chen said softly. Minseo nodded. She felt tears building behind her eyes, but she forced them back. It was the right choice. My father's better now. My brothers are still in school. Family is more important than my dreams. Dr. Chen felt her heart ache. Here was a young woman with obvious talent, forced to give up her education for her family. And now she cleaned buildings at night while professors like Richardson dismissed her without a second thought. Minseo, can I ask you another question? Dr. Chen said, yes. Professor Richardson is working on a specific optimization problem, the one on the board in Lecture Hall B. Have you looked at it carefully? Minseo nodded slowly. Yes, I have looked at it. Do you think you know how to solve it? Minseo bit her lip. This felt like a test, and she was afraid of giving the wrong answer. But Dr. Chen's face showed only curiosity and kindness, no judgment. I think I do, Minseo said quietly. I have been thinking about it for many days now. When I clean, when I ride the bus home, when I try to sleep, the problem stays in my mind. And I think I found the answer. Dr. Chen felt excitement run through her. Would you be willing to show me? To write it down? Minseo looked scared. Professor Richardson will be angry. Not for me, Dr. Chen said. Just for me to see. I will not tell him yet. I just want to understand your thinking. Please, Minseo. This is important. Minseo looked at Dr. Chen for a long moment. Dr. Chen led Minseo to her office. It was small but comfortable, with bookshelves full of mathematics textbooks and papers stacked on every surface. Minseo had cleaned this office many times before, but she had never been inside it as a guest. Please sit down, Dr. Chen said, pulling out a chair. She grabbed a notepad and several pens from her desk. Take your time. Show me your thinking. Minseo sat down carefully. Her hands were shaking. She had not written out a complex mathematical proof in almost 2 years. What if she had forgotten how? What if her solution was wrong? But when she picked up the pen and looked at the blank paper, something inside her woke up. It was like a muscle she had not used in a long time. Stiff and uncertain at first, but then remembering its strength. She started writing. At first her handwriting was messy because her hand shook. But as she moved deeper into the problem, as the equations flowed from her pen, her confidence grew. The mathematics was still there inside her. It had never left. Dr. Chen watched in silence. She did not want to interrupt. She could see that Min Seo had entered that special state that all mathematicians know, where the rest of the world disappears and only the problem exists. Min Seo filled one page, then another, then another. She wrote equations, drew diagrams, explained her reasoning in careful steps. Sometimes she would pause, stare at the ceiling, then continue with renewed energy. Finally, after about 45 minutes, Min Seo set down her pen. "There," she said quietly. "That is the complete solution." Dr. Chen picked up the papers with careful hands. She began to read, and as she read, her eyes grew wider and wider. The solution was brilliant. Min Seo had approached the problem from an angle that Dr. Chen had never considered. She had used a theorem that was not commonly taught in standard calculus courses, a theorem that required knowledge of more advanced mathematics, and she had applied it with perfect precision. But more than that, the proof was elegant. In mathematics, elegance matters. A good solution is not just correct, it is beautiful. It reveals deeper truths about the problem. Min Seo's proof did exactly that. "Min Seo," Dr. Chen said, her voice full of emotion, "this is outstanding work, really outstanding." Min Seo felt warmth spread through her chest. She had not realized how much she missed this feeling, the feeling of being seen for her mathematical mind. "Are you sure it is correct?" Min Seo asked. "I have not done this kind of work in a long time. Maybe I made mistakes. Let me check it carefully," Dr. Chen said. She spent the next 20 minutes going through every step of the proof, checking each equation, verifying each logical jump. When she finished, she looked up at Min Seo with amazement. "It is completely correct. Not a single error. Min Seo, this is not just correct, this is breakthrough work. This approach could open new ways of solving similar problems. Do you understand what that means?" Min Seo shook her head. She felt overwhelmed. "It means this could be published in a mathematics journal. This could be real research." Dr. Chen leaned forward. "Min Seo, I need to ask you something important. What do you want? What do you really want in your life?" The question caught Min Seo off guard. What did she want? For so long she had focused only on survival, on working, on sending money home. She had buried her own dreams so deep that she had almost forgotten they existed. "I want to finish my degree," Min Seo said slowly. "I want to be a mathematician again, but I cannot. I need to work. I need to send money to my family. What if there was a way to do both?" Dr. Chen asked. "What if you could study and still support your family?" "I do not understand," Min Seo said. Dr. Chen stood up and paced her small office. An idea was forming in her mind, but it was risky. It would require careful planning. "Min Seo, our department is hosting a mathematics colloquium next week. It is a special event where researchers present their work to other mathematicians. Professor Richardson is scheduled to present his progress on this optimization problem." Dr. Chen paused. "But what if you presented the solution instead?" Min Seo's eyes went wide. "Me, present to professors? No, I cannot. They would never listen to me. I am just a janitor." "That is exactly the point," Dr. Chen said. "They should listen to you. Your work deserves to be heard no matter what job you have right now. And when they see how brilliant your solution is, doors will open for you. Scholarships, research positions, opportunities. But Professor Richardson," Min Seo said, "he will be very angry. He already erased my notes. He sent emails telling people not to touch his boards. If I present his problem, he will think I am trying to embarrass him." "He will be angry at first," Dr. Chen admitted, "but he is a mathematician. When he sees a good proof, he has to respect it. That is the rule of mathematics. The best solution wins, not the person with the most power or the highest title." Min Seo wanted to believe that, but she had seen how the world really worked. She had seen how people treated her differently when she wore a janitor's uniform instead of student clothes. "I am afraid," Min Seo said honestly. "I know," Dr. Chen said. "I am a little afraid too. But I believe in you, Min Seo. I believe in your gift, and I think you deserve a chance to show the world what you can do." They sat in silence for a moment. Min Seo thought about her father in Seoul, about how proud he had been when she won that scholarship to Seoul National University. She thought about her younger brothers who used to brag to their friends that their sister was a math genius. She thought about the person she used to be before life forced her to become someone else. "Okay," Min Seo said finally. "I will do it. I will present my solution." Dr. Chen smiled. "Good, but we need to be smart about this. We cannot just tell Professor Richardson that you are presenting. He will try to stop it. We need to go through proper channels. Over the next hour, Dr. Chen explained her plan. She would submit Minseo's proof anonymously to the Colloquium Review Committee. The committee was made up of 3 senior professors from other universities who would evaluate the work without knowing who wrote it. If they approved it, the presentation would go forward. But they will need to meet you eventually, Dr. Chen said, before the colloquium. When they see your work is legitimate, they will want to know who you are. What if they say no when they find out I am a janitor? Minseo asked. Then they are fools, Dr. Chen said firmly. But I do not think they will. These are serious mathematicians. They care about the work, not the person's job title. At least I hope they do. That night after Minseo finished her cleaning shift, she could not sleep. She lay in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what she had agreed to do. Part of her was excited. Part of her was terrified. The next day, Dr. Chen submitted Minseo's proof to the review committee under a pseudonym. She used the name M.S. Park without explaining who that was. She included only the mathematical work, nothing about the author's background. Then they waited. Dr. Chen told Minseo it might take 3 or 4 days to hear back. During those days, Minseo went to work as usual. She cleaned the buildings, pushed her cart through empty hallways, wiped whiteboards. But inside, her mind was spinning with anxiety and hope. On the 3rd day, Dr. Chen received an email. She read it 3 times to make sure she understood correctly. Then she called Minseo. "Can you come to my office tonight?" Dr. Chen asked. "I have news." Minseo's heart pounded. "Is it bad news?" "Just come," Dr. Chen said. "As soon as you can." That evening, Minseo arrived at Dr. Chen's office still wearing her janitor uniform. Dr. Chen was sitting at her desk with her laptop open. Her face was impossible to read. "Sit down, Minseo," Dr. Chen said. Minseo sat. Her hands gripped the arms of the chair. Dr. Chen turned her laptop around so Minseo could see the screen. "These are the responses from the 3 review committee members. I want you to read them yourself." Minseo leaned forward and began to read. The first email was from Professor James Morrison at Stanford University. He wrote, "This proof is exceptional. The approach is innovative and the execution is flawless. I strongly recommend acceptance. Who is M.S. Park? I would like to meet this mathematician." The second email was from Professor Lisa Washington at MIT. She wrote, "I have been working in this area of optimization theory for 15 years, and this is one of the most elegant solutions I have seen. The author has a gift for seeing patterns that others miss. Please accept this presentation immediately." The third email was from Professor Robert Kim at University of Chicago. He wrote, "Outstanding work. This opens new avenues for research. I assume M.S. Park is a postdoctoral researcher? We should discuss potential collaboration." Minseo looked up at Dr. Chen with tears in her eyes. "They liked it?" "They loved it," Dr. Chen said, smiling. "Minseo, do you understand what this means? 3 of the most respected mathematicians in the country just praised your work. They do not know you are a janitor. They do not know you never finished your bachelor's degree. They only know that you are brilliant." Minseo put her hands over her face. She was crying now, really crying. All the stress and fear and hope of the past few days poured out of her. Dr. Chen came around the desk and put a hand on Minseo's shoulder. "You deserve this," she said softly. "You have always deserved this." After a few minutes, Minseo wiped her eyes and looked up. "What happens now?" "Now the committee wants to meet you," Dr. Chen said. "They need to verify that the work is really yours, that you understand it completely. This is standard procedure. They will ask you questions about your proof, about your mathematical background." "When?" Minseo asked. "In 2 days. They are flying in for the colloquium anyway, so they will meet with you the day before. It will be just the 4 of you, in a private room. Then, if everything goes well, you will present at the colloquium the next day." Minseo felt panic rising in her chest again. 2 days? I need to prepare. I need to review everything. What if I forget something? What if I cannot answer their questions? "You will be fine," Dr. Chen said. "The mathematics is inside you. It never left. You just need to trust yourself." "What about Professor Richardson?" Minseo asked. "Does he know?" Dr. Chen shook her head. "Not yet. I told the department chair that a visiting researcher has solved his problem and will be presenting. I did not say who. Richardson is very unhappy about it, but the chair insisted. The colloquium must go forward." Min-seo imagined Professor Richardson's face when he saw her walk onto the stage. She felt sick. "It will be okay," Dr. Chen said, reading her expression. "Yes, he will be shocked. Yes, he will probably be angry. But the mathematics speaks for itself. Once you present your proof, once everyone sees how brilliant it is, his anger will not matter." "I hope you are right," Min-seo said quietly. "I am right," Dr. Chen said firmly. "Now go home and rest. Tomorrow we start preparing for your meeting with the committee." The next 2 days were the hardest days of Min-seo's life. She barely slept. Every spare moment she had, she reviewed her proof, practiced explaining it, prepared for every possible question the committee might ask. Dr. Chen helped her every step of the way. They met in Dr. Chen's office during Min-seo's breaks at work. They went over the mathematics again and again. Dr. Chen asked tough questions, the kind that senior professors would ask, making Min-seo defend every choice she had made in her proof. At first, Min-seo struggled. Her English was not perfect, especially when she had to explain complex mathematical concepts. She knew the mathematics perfectly in her mind, but putting it into words was difficult. "Do not worry about perfect English," Dr. Chen told her. "As long as your mathematics is clear, they will understand. Mathematicians speak the language of equations. That is universal." But it was not just the language that worried Min-seo. It was everything. What should she wear? How should she act? She was used to being invisible, the quiet janitor that no one noticed. Now she had to stand in front of important professors and prove that she belonged in their world. Dr. Chen understood these fears. "Min-seo, I want to tell you something," she said during one of their practice sessions. "I am a woman in mathematics. Do you know how many women professors there are in this department?" Min-seo shook her head. 3. Out of 25 professors. 3 women. Dr. Chen leaned back in her chair. "When I first started here, some of my male colleagues did not take me seriously. They thought I was hired just to fill a diversity quota. I had to prove myself again and again. I had to be twice as good to get half the respect." "That must have been very hard," Min-seo said. "It was. But I learned something important. The mathematics does not care who you are. A good proof is a good proof, whether it comes from a man or a woman, whether it comes from a professor or a janitor. You just have to show them the work. The work will speak for itself." Min-seo nodded, trying to absorb this wisdom. But inside she still felt like a fraud. She was about to sit in a room with 3 famous professors and pretend she was their equal. How could she possibly do that? On the night before her meeting with the committee, Min-seo could not eat dinner. Her stomach was twisted in knots. She had asked her supervisor for the night off from work, making up an excuse about a family emergency. It was the first time she had ever called in sick. She stood in her small apartment, looking at the clothes spread out on her bed. Dr. Chen had taken her shopping the day before, insisting that she needed something professional to wear. They had found a simple black blazer and dress pants at a discount store. Min-seo had tried to refuse, but Dr. Chen had paid for them herself. "Think of it as an investment," Dr. Chen had said. "An investment in your future." Now Min-seo picked up the blazer and held it against herself. She looked at her reflection in the small mirror on her wall. Who was this person? Was she Min-seo the janitor or Min-seo the mathematician? Could she be both? Her phone buzzed. It was a text message from Dr. Chen. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow you are going to be amazing. I believe in you." Min-seo smiled despite her nerves. At least someone believed in her. The next morning, Min-seo woke up at 6 a.m. even though her meeting was not until 10. She showered, dried her hair carefully, and put on her new professional clothes. She looked at herself in the mirror again. With these clothes, with her hair styled neatly, she almost looked like she could be a real mathematician. But then she noticed her hands. They were red and rough from years of cleaning work, from chemicals and scrubbing. No amount of nice clothes could hide that. She arrived at the university at 9:30. Dr. Chen had told her to meet at her office first. When Min-seo walked through the mathematics building in her professional clothes instead of her janitor uniform, several people stared at her. She recognized a few professors she had seen before, but they did not recognize her. Without her cleaning cart, without her uniform, she was invisible in a different way. Dr. Chen was waiting in her office. "You look perfect," she said warmly. "How do you feel?" "Terrified," Min-seo admitted. "That is normal. Even experienced professors get nervous before presentations." Dr. Chen picked up a folder from her desk. I have copies of your proof here. The committee has already seen it, but you should have it with you for reference. They walked together to a small conference room on the 3rd floor. Outside the door, Dr. Chen stopped and turned to Min Seo. Remember, they already love your work. They already think you are brilliant. This meeting is just a formality, a chance for them to meet you and verify that you really understand your own proof. Be confident. Be yourself. Min Seo nodded, her mouth too dry to speak. Dr. Chen opened the door. Inside, 3 people sat around a conference table. Professor Morrison from Stanford was a tall man in his 60s with gray hair. Professor Washington from MIT was a black woman in her 50s with kind eyes. Professor Kim from University of Chicago was a Korean-American man in his 40s who smiled when he saw Min Seo. Good morning, Dr. Chen said. Thank you all for coming. This is Min Seo Park, the author of the optimization proof you reviewed. The 3 professors stood up to shake Min Seo's hand. Professor Kim spoke to her in Korean first, which made Min Seo feel a little less nervous. Then they all sat down. Ms. Park, Professor Morrison began, we were very impressed with your work. The proof you submitted shows remarkable insight and mathematical maturity. Can you tell us about your mathematical background? This was the moment Min Seo had been dreading. She had to tell them the truth. I studied mathematics at Seoul National University in Korea, Min Seo said, her voice quiet but steady. I was there for 3 years on a full scholarship, but I had to leave before I finished my degree. Family problems. Since then, I have been working to support my family. What kind of work? Professor Washington asked gently. Min Seo glanced at Dr. Chen, who nodded encouragingly. I work as a janitor here at Riverside University. I clean the mathematics building at night. There was a moment of silence. The 3 professors exchanged glances. Min Seo felt her heart sink. This was it. They were going to tell her that janitors could not present at academic colloquia. But then Professor Kim leaned forward. You studied at Seoul National University? That is an excellent school. One of the best in Asia. And you had a scholarship? Yes, Min Seo said. I won a national mathematics competition in high school. The scholarship was the prize. That is impressive, Professor Morrison said. Very impressive. But I have to ask, Ms. Park, if you left university 3 years ago and you have been working as a janitor since then, how did you maintain your mathematical skills? How did you develop the sophisticated approach we saw in your proof? This was a fair question, Min Seo knew. She had asked herself the same thing many times. I never stopped thinking about mathematics, Min Seo said. When I clean the buildings, when I ride the bus, when I have free time, I think about problems. I read mathematics papers online when I can. The university library is open to everyone, so sometimes I go there and read journals. And when I clean the lecture halls and see problems on the whiteboards, she trailed off, embarrassed. You solve them, Professor Washington finished with a smile. You see a problem and you cannot help yourself. You have to work on it. Yes, Min Seo said, grateful that someone understood. Exactly that, Professor Kim nodded. That is the mark of a true mathematician. It is not about degrees or job titles. It is about the obsession with problems, the need to understand patterns and find solutions. You have that obsession. Ms. Park, Professor Morrison said, we would like to ask you some questions about your proof. Not because we doubt you, but because this is standard procedure. We need to verify that you understand your own work completely. Is that acceptable? Yes, of course, Min Seo said. For the next hour, the 3 professors asked her questions. They asked her to explain specific steps in her proof. They asked her why she chose certain approaches over others. They asked her to consider alternative methods and explain why hers was better. At first, Min Seo was nervous and her answers were hesitant. But as she got deeper into the mathematics, as she started drawing equations on the whiteboard in the conference room, her confidence grew. This was her language. This was where she belonged. She explained her thinking with growing clarity. She drew diagrams, she wrote out equations, she walked the professors through her logical process step by step. And as she talked, she could see understanding and respect growing in their eyes. Finally, after what felt like both hours and minutes at the same time, Professor Morrison sat back in his chair. Ms. Park, he said, I have been teaching mathematics for 35 years. I have met many brilliant young mathematicians. You are among the best I have encountered. Your proof is not just correct, it is inspired. You have a gift. Minseo felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but she forced them back. She needed to be professional. Thank you, she managed to say. Professor Washington smiled warmly. We approve your presentation for tomorrow's colloquium. But more than that, Ms. Park, I want you to know that I will be contacting my department at MIT. We have funding for special students with exceptional talent who need support. I think you would be an excellent candidate. I want to make the same offer, Professor Kim said. University of Chicago has a program for non-traditional students. You could finish your bachelor's degree with us and move directly into our PhD program if you wish. Minseo looked at Dr. Chen, completely overwhelmed. Was this really happening? Were these famous professors offering her chances to continue her education? You do not have to decide anything now, Professor Morrison said kindly. First, let us get through tomorrow's presentation. But I want you to know, Ms. Park, that your work has opened doors for you. Important doors. After the meeting ended and the professors left, Minseo sat in the conference room with Dr. Chen. She felt numb with shock and joy and disbelief. I told you, Dr. Chen said softly. I told you the work would speak for itself. I cannot believe this is real, Minseo said. Tomorrow I will present at a colloquium. Me, a janitor. No, Dr. Chen corrected gently. Tomorrow a mathematician will present at a colloquium. That mathematician happens to work as a janitor right now. But that is not who you are. Who you are is a brilliant problem solver who deserves every opportunity you are being offered. Minseo nodded, wiping away tears. What about Professor Richardson? What will he do when he sees me tomorrow? Dr. Chen's expression grew serious. I do not know. But Minseo, you cannot let his reaction control you. You have earned your place on that stage tomorrow. You have done nothing wrong. You solved a problem he could not solve. That is not an insult. That is just the truth. I am still afraid, Minseo admitted. Fear is okay, Dr. Chen said. Fear means this matters to you. But do not let fear stop you. Tomorrow you show everyone who you really are. The day of the colloquium arrived. Minseo woke up at dawn even though the presentation was not until 2 in the afternoon. She had barely slept, going over her presentation again and again in her mind. She made herself eat breakfast, even though her stomach felt like it was full of stones. Dr. Chen had told her she needed energy for the day ahead, so Minseo forced down some toast and drank tea, her hands shaking around the cup. At noon she put on her professional clothes again. The black blazer and dress pants that had felt so strange 2 days ago now felt a little more natural. She looked at herself in the mirror and tried to see what the committee professors had seen. A mathematician, a problem solver, someone who belonged in that world. But all she could see was a scared young woman who was about to face the most important moment of her life. Dr. Chen had arranged to pick Minseo up at her apartment. When the car arrived, Minseo grabbed her folder of notes and hurried outside. Dr. Chen was waiting with a warm smile. Ready? Dr. Chen asked. No, Minseo said honestly. But I will do it anyway. They drove to the university in comfortable silence. Dr. Chen did not try to give her last-minute advice or encouragement. Sometimes silence was better than words. The mathematics building was busier than Minseo had ever seen it. Cars filled the parking lot. People in professional clothes walked toward the main entrance. The colloquium was a big event, Dr. Chen had explained. Professors from nearby universities came to attend. Graduate students came to learn. It was a chance to see cutting-edge research and network with other mathematicians, and Minseo was going to present in front of all of them. They entered through a side door to avoid the crowds. Dr. Chen led Minseo to a small room near the main lecture hall where presenters could wait and prepare. The colloquium starts at 2, Dr. Chen said, checking her watch. There are 3 presentations today. Yours is the last one at 3:30. Professor Richardson knows someone is presenting on his optimization problem, but he still does not know it is you. Where is he now? Minseo asked. Probably in the lecture hall already. He likes to sit in the front row. Dr. Chen put a hand on Minseo's shoulder. Listen to me carefully. When you walk onto that stage and he sees you, he is going to be shocked. He might be angry. He might even say something. You cannot let that throw you off. You focus on the mathematics. You focus on your presentation. Nothing else matters. Minseo nodded, trying to absorb this advice. But inside she felt like a small boat in a storm. being tossed in every direction. At 3:15, Dr. Chen walked Minseo to the backstage area of the lecture hall. Through a crack in the curtain, Minseo could see the auditorium. It was packed. Every seat was filled, and people stood along the walls. She saw professors she recognized from cleaning their offices. She saw graduate students with notebooks ready. She saw the 3 committee professors sitting together in the 3rd row, and in the front row, right in the center, sat Professor David Richardson. His arms were crossed over his chest and his face looked stern. He was not happy about this presentation. That much was clear. The current speaker was finishing up his talk about differential equations. Minseo could barely pay attention. Her heart was beating so loud she could hear it in her ears. Then it was time. The department chair, Dr. Williams, walked to the podium. He was an older man with white hair and a kind face. "Thank you, Dr. Martinez, for that fascinating presentation," Dr. Williams said. "Now for our final presentation of the day, we have something quite special. As many of you know, Professor Richardson has been working on a challenging optimization problem for several months. Today we are fortunate to have someone who has developed a complete solution to this problem." Professor Richardson sat up straighter in his seat. Minseo could see him looking around, trying to see who was coming. "Please welcome our presenter," Dr. Williams said. "Minseo Park." Minseo took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. Her legs felt weak, but she forced them to move. She walked to the podium and looked out at the audience. The reaction was immediate. Gasps and whispers filled the room. People leaned toward each other, asking questions. Graduate students who had seen Minseo cleaning the building late at night stared in confusion. Professors who did not recognize her wondered who this young woman was. But the strongest reaction came from Professor Richardson. His face went through several emotions in quick succession. First confusion, then recognition, then disbelief, then anger. His face turned red and he leaned forward in his seat like he might stand up and object. Dr. Chen, sitting a few rows back, caught his eye and shook her head slightly. A warning. Richardson saw the 3 committee professors sitting calmly, waiting for the presentation to begin. He seemed to realize that whatever was happening here had already been approved by people he respected. Slowly, he sat back in his seat, but his arms remained crossed and his jaw was tight. Minseo's hands gripped the sides of the podium. For a moment, she could not remember how to speak. Her mind was blank with fear. Then she looked at Dr. Chen, who smiled and nodded. She looked at the committee professors, who watched her with encouraging expressions. She thought about her father in Seoul, about her brothers, about the 3 years she had spent at Seoul National University, when mathematics had been her whole world. She thought about all those nights cleaning lecture halls, studying problems on whiteboards, keeping her mind alive with mathematics even when the world told her she was just a janitor, and she found her voice. "Thank you for having me today," Minseo said. Her accent was thick, but her words were clear. "I am going to present a solution to the optimization problem that has been the subject of much research in this department. But first, I want to explain my approach and why I chose this particular method." She turned to the large whiteboard behind her and picked up a marker. And as she started to write the first equation, something magical happened. The fear did not disappear, but it became smaller. The mathematics became bigger. She wrote equations with steady hands. She drew diagrams to illustrate her points. She explained her reasoning step by step, building her proof like a story, showing the audience not just what she had discovered, but how she had discovered it. She had been afraid that her English would fail her, but the language of mathematics was universal. When words were not enough, the equations spoke for themselves. The audience was completely silent, watching intently. Some people took notes, others just stared, following the logic as it unfolded on the board. Professor Richardson's expression slowly changed as the presentation continued. The anger began to fade, replaced by something else. Surprise, perhaps, or maybe unwilling respect. He was a mathematician, after all, and mathematicians recognize good work when they see it. Minseo reached the key moment in her proof, the place where she had used a lesser-known theorem that Professor Richardson had not considered. She explained why this theorem was perfect for this problem, how it simplified what had seemed impossibly complex. "And this leads us to the final result," Minseo said, writing out the last few lines of her proof. We can see that the optimal value is achieved at this point and the maximum is exactly this value. She stepped back from the board and looked at the audience. That completes my proof. I am happy to answer questions. For a moment there was silence. Then the room erupted in applause. It started with the committee professors who stood up and clapped loudly. Then others joined in. Graduate students, visiting professors, even some of Minseo's colleagues from the janitorial staff who had snuck in to watch. Minseo felt her eyes fill with tears. She blinked them back quickly. This was not the time to cry. The department chair stood up. Thank you, Ms. Park, for that excellent presentation. Does anyone have questions? Several hands shot up. Professor Morrison from Stanford was first. He asked a technical question about one step in the proof, wanting to understand her thinking more deeply. Minseo answered clearly, drawing a quick diagram to illustrate her point. Professor Washington asked about potential applications of this approach to other problems. Minseo explained how the method could be generalized, showing that she understood not just this specific problem but the broader mathematical landscape. More questions came, each one challenging, each one an opportunity for Minseo to demonstrate her deep understanding of the material. She answered them all with growing confidence. Finally, Professor Richardson raised his hand. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the tension in this moment. Yes, Professor Richardson? The department chair said carefully. Richardson stood up. He looked at Minseo for a long moment. Minseo forced herself to meet his eyes even though her instinct was to look away. Ms. Park, Richardson said slowly, I have been working on this problem for 6 months. I tried every approach I could think of. I consulted colleagues. I reviewed dozens of papers, and I could not solve it. He paused. Your solution is elegant and correct. It uses a method I should have considered but did not. My question is this. How long did it take you to develop this proof? Minseo hesitated. Should she tell the truth? Would it sound like she was showing off? But she had come this far with honesty. She would not stop now. About 3 weeks, Minseo said quietly. I saw the problem on the board in Lecture Hall B. I started thinking about it while I was working. And after 3 weeks, I had the complete solution. More murmurs rippled through the audience. 3 weeks. It had taken her only 3 weeks to solve what Professor Richardson had struggled with for 6 months. Richardson nodded slowly. I see. He sat back down without another word. The department chair looked around the room. Any other questions? When no more hands went up, he smiled. Then let us thank Ms. Park again for this outstanding presentation. The applause was even louder this time. Minseo bowed slightly, the Korean way of showing respect and gratitude. Then Dr. Chen was on the stage, guiding her backstage, away from all the eyes and attention. As soon as they were behind the curtain, Minseo's legs went weak. Dr. Chen caught her arm and helped her to a chair. You did it, Dr. Chen said, her voice full of emotion. Minseo, you were brilliant. Do you understand what just happened? You just gave a perfect presentation in front of some of the best mathematicians in the country, and you proved that you belong here. Minseo put her head in her hands. The adrenaline was draining out of her, leaving her exhausted. But underneath the exhaustion was something else. Pride. Joy. A sense of coming home to herself. Professor Richardson's face, Minseo said, starting to laugh despite herself. Did you see his face when I walked onto the stage? Dr. Chen laughed too. I thought he was going to have a heart attack. But did you see his face at the end? That was respect, Minseo. He recognized your work. He had no choice but to recognize it. There was a knock on the door. Dr. Chen opened it to find the 3 committee professors standing there, along with several other faculty members. Ms. Park, Professor Morrison said, we wondered if we might have a word with you. Minseo stood up, smoothing down her blazer. Her hands were still shaking slightly, but she tried to look calm. Dr. Chen stood beside her like a protective guardian. The small backstage area suddenly felt crowded with all the professors. But their faces were kind, their expressions warm and encouraging. Ms. Park, Professor Washington from MIT began. Your presentation was truly exceptional. I spoke with my colleagues at MIT, and we would like to formally offer you admission to our mathematics program. We can help you complete your bachelor's degree, and then transition directly into our PhD program. Full scholarship plus a living stipend. Minseo's mouth fell open. She had been hoping for maybe one opportunity, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. I have similar news, Professor Kim from University of Chicago said. Our department chair has approved a special admission for you. We have a program specifically designed for talented students with non-traditional backgrounds, full funding, and we can be flexible about your need to work part-time if you still need to support your family. Professor Morrison from Stanford nodded. Stanford would also like to extend an offer. Ms. Park, you have your pick of some of the best mathematics programs in the country. That is how strong your work is. Mincio looked at Dr. Chen, overwhelmed. I do not know what to say, she whispered. You do not have to decide now, Dr. Chen said gently. These offers will remain open. You can take time to think about what is best for you. The department chair, Dr. Williams, stepped forward. Ms. Park, I would also like to make an offer on behalf of Riverside University. We have not always seen the talent that was right in front of us, and for that I apologize. But if you choose to stay here and complete your studies with us, we will offer you a full scholarship and a position as a research assistant. You would work directly with Dr. Chen. I would be honored to be your advisor, Dr. Chen added, smiling. Before Mincio could respond, there was movement at the door. The small group of professors parted, and Professor Richardson stepped into the room. Everyone fell silent. Mincio felt her heart start to race again. This was the moment she had been dreading. What would he say? Would he try to discredit her work? Would he accuse her of somehow stealing his research? Professor Richardson looked older than he had that morning. The anger was gone from his face, replaced by something that looked almost like shame. He stood there for a moment as if gathering his courage. Then he spoke, and his voice was quiet and serious. Ms. Park, he said, I owe you an apology. A public one, which I will make, but first a private one. He took a breath. For months you left notes on my whiteboard. Notes that I erased without reading carefully. Notes that I dismissed because they came from a janitor, not a colleague. I was arrogant and foolish. I failed to see the person behind the job title. I failed to recognize brilliance when it was literally written out for me. Mincio did not know what to say. She had imagined this confrontation going many different ways, but she had not expected this. A genuine apology. Your solution to my problem is not just correct, Richardson continued. It is better than anything I could have developed. You saw an approach that I missed, despite all my years of experience and education. That is not luck. That is talent, real, undeniable talent. He paused. I have been teaching mathematics for 30 years. I thought I knew how to recognize a mathematician when I saw one. But I was wrong. A mathematician is not someone with the right credentials or the right job. A mathematician is someone who sees patterns, who loves problems, who cannot help but search for solutions. You are a mathematician, Ms. Park. You always have been. Tears were running down Mincio's face now. She could not stop them. For 2 years she had felt like she was living a lie, pretending to be someone she was not. But Professor Richardson was telling her that she had never stopped being who she truly was. Thank you, she managed to say. That means very much to me. Richardson nodded. I would like to make a formal request to the department. I propose that we establish a new scholarship program, named after Ms. Park, for talented individuals who face barriers to education. University staff, community members, anyone who shows mathematical promise. We should be looking for brilliance everywhere, not just in traditional places. That is an excellent idea, Dr. Williams said immediately. I support this fully. The other professors murmured their agreement. Dr. Chen squeezed Mincio's shoulder gently. Richardson turned to leave, then stopped. Ms. Park, wherever you choose to continue your studies, I hope you will consider publishing your proof. It deserves to be in a top journal. I would be happy to write a letter of recommendation, if you would accept it. I would be honored, Mincio said softly. After Richardson left, the other professors gradually said their goodbyes, each one leaving their contact information and encouraging Mincio to reach out if she had questions about their programs. Finally, it was just Mincio and Dr. Chen again. I need to sit down, Mincio said, sinking back into her chair. Did that really just happen? It really did, Dr. Chen said, sitting beside her. Mincio, do you understand what you have accomplished today? You did not just solve a math problem. You showed an entire department that they needed to change how they think about talent and opportunity. You changed minds. That is rare and precious. Mincio wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I feel like I am dreaming. Like I will wake up and I will be back in my apartment getting ready for my janitor shift. It is real. Dr. Chen assured her. So what do you want to do now? You have 3 top universities offering you positions plus the option to stay here. What does your heart tell you? Min-seo thought about this question. A month ago, the answer would have been simple. She would have taken any opportunity, grateful just to be back in mathematics. But now she had choices. Real choices. I need to talk to my family first, Min-seo said. My father, my mother, my brothers, they sacrificed so much for me. This decision affects all of us. Of course, Dr. Chen said. Take all the time you need. That night, Min-seo called home to Seoul. It was morning there, and her mother answered the phone on the second ring. Min-seo, we were just talking about you. Your father wants to know when you can visit. Min-seo said, using the Korean word for mother. I have something to tell you. Something big happened today. She told her mother everything. About the math problem, about the presentation, about the offers from famous universities. Her mother listened in silence, and when Min-seo finished, she heard her mother crying softly. Why are you crying, Uma? Min-seo asked, worried. Because I am proud, her mother said. So proud. We always knew you were special. We always knew you had a gift. When you had to leave university, it broke your father's heart. Not because of money or prestige, but because he knew how much you loved mathematics. He felt like he had taken your dream away from you. It was not his fault, Min-seo said firmly. Family is more important than dreams. I would make the same choice again. I know you would. That is why we are proud of you. Not just because you are smart, but because you are good. Her mother paused. Min-seo, your father's health is much better now. Your brothers are both working part-time jobs while they study. We do not need as much money from you anymore. If you want to go back to school, if you want to follow your dream, we will be okay. You do not have to take care of us anymore. It is time to take care of yourself. Min-seo felt a weight lift from her shoulders that she had not even realized she was carrying. For 2 years, she had been the one supporting everyone else. Now her family was telling her it was okay to support herself, to pursue her own path. Thank you, Uma, she whispered. Over the next few weeks, Min-seo visited all 3 universities that had made her offers. She met with faculty, toured facilities, talked to current students. Each place had its strengths. MIT had incredible resources and famous researchers. University of Chicago had a welcoming community, and Professor Kim spoke Korean, which felt like home. Stanford had beautiful weather and groundbreaking work in her area of interest. But in the end, Min-seo made an unexpected choice. She decided to stay at Riverside University. When she told Dr. Chen her decision, the professor looked surprised. Are you sure? Those other schools are very prestigious. I am sure, Min-seo said. Riverside University is where I found my way back to mathematics. It is where you believed in me when no one else did. And I think I can do more good here. Professor Richardson's scholarship program, helping other people who face barriers to education, being part of the change this department needs. That matters to me. Dr. Chen smiled, her eyes bright with emotion. Then I will be honored to be your advisor. The semester began, and Min-seo started classes as a full-time student for the first time in almost 3 years. She still worked part-time, but now as a research assistant in the mathematics department instead of a janitor. She earned enough to live on and still send some money home, though her family needed less now. She took advanced courses and excelled in all of them. She worked with Dr. Chen on research projects. She helped Professor Richardson develop the new scholarship program, and they formed an unlikely friendship based on mutual respect and their shared love of mathematics. Her optimization proof was published in a top mathematics journal 6 months later. Min-seo Park's name appeared in bold letters at the top of the article. Researchers around the world read her work and cited it in their own papers. She received emails from mathematicians in different countries, congratulating her and asking questions about her methods. 2 years later, Min-seo defended her master's thesis. The thesis built on her original optimization work, expanding it into new areas and opening up even more research questions. The defense was held in the same lecture hall where she had given her first presentation. The room was packed again, but this time Min-seo was not afraid. She presented her work with confidence and grace, fielding questions from the examination committee with ease. Professor Richardson sat in the front row again, but now he smiled with pride instead of anger. The 3 committee professors from Stanford, MIT, and University of Chicago had flown in for the defense, wanting to support her, and in the back row sat a group of people in custodial uniforms. Her former colleagues from the janitorial staff. They had asked for permission to attend, wanting to see their friend succeed. When the examination committee announced that Minseo had passed with distinction, the room erupted in applause. Dr. Chen presented her with a bound copy of her thesis, and they hugged tightly. Afterward, there was a small reception in the mathematics department lounge. People congratulated Minseo, asking about her plans for the future. She had already been accepted into Riverside's PhD program with full funding. She had also been offered a teaching assistantship, where she would help teach introductory calculus to undergraduates. As the reception was winding down, one of her former colleagues from the janitorial staff approached her. His name was Carlos, and he had been working at the university for 15 years. "Ms. Park," Carlos said shyly, "I wanted to ask you something. I saw your name on the scholarship program, the Richardson Park Scholarship for Non-Traditional Students. Is it true that university staff can apply?" "Yes, absolutely," Minseo said warmly. "Do you want to go back to school, Carlos?" "I always wanted to study engineering," Carlos admitted, "but I never had the money for college. Now my kids are grown up and I think maybe it is not too late for me." "It is never too late," Minseo said firmly. "I will help you with your application. I promise." Carlos smiled, hope bright in his eyes. "Thank you. You know, we were all so proud of you. We always knew you were special. Even when you were just cleaning with us, you never acted like you were better than us even though you were so smart." "I was never better than you," Minseo said. "We were all just people doing our jobs, trying to make our lives better. I just had some lucky breaks." "It was not luck," Carlos said. "It was talent and hard work. You earned everything you have." After everyone left, Minseo walked through the empty mathematics building one last time as a master's student. She stopped in Lecture Hall B, the room where her journey had really begun. The same whiteboards covered the walls. The same desks filled the space, but everything was different now. She was different now. Minseo picked up a marker and walked to the board. In the corner, in small handwriting, she wrote a message. Not an equation this time, but words. "To anyone who feels invisible, you are not. Your mind matters. Your ideas matter. Never stop thinking, never stop learning, never stop believing in yourself. The world needs what you have to offer." She signed it simply. Minseo Park, mathematician. Then she turned off the lights and walked out of the lecture hall, ready for whatever came next. She had found her way back to mathematics. She had found her way back to herself, and now she would spend her life making sure others could find their way too. Outside, the evening was warm and beautiful. Dr. Chen was waiting by the door. "Ready to celebrate?" Dr. Chen asked. "I made reservations at that Korean restaurant you like." "Perfect," Minseo said, linking her arm through her advisor's. "But first, tell me about your current research problem. I've been thinking about it and I might have some ideas." Dr. Chen laughed. "Of course you do. You cannot help yourself. Once a mathematician, always a mathematician." "Always," Minseo agreed, smiling. "Always." And as they walked together through the campus, past the mathematics building where Minseo had once worked as a janitor, and now studied as a researcher, she felt complete. Not because she had proven her worth to others, but because she had proven it to herself. She had taken a small act of courage, a note written in the corner of a whiteboard, and turned it into a new life. A life where she could be both humble and brilliant, both grateful and ambitious, both a helper of others and a pursuer of her own dreams. Mathematics had never left her, even when circumstances had forced her to leave mathematics, and now they were reunited and nothing would separate them again. The janitor who solved impossible problems had become the mathematician who made impossible things possible. And her story would inspire others for years to come, reminding them that talent can be found anywhere, if only we are willing to look.